Hi, I'm Sean Duffy with Med Gadget. I'm here with Eric Dishman from Intel Health. When you think of Intel, you usually don't think of health, but more lately, Intel's been increasingly focused on healthcare, specifically long-term health. So Eric's got a booth here with a lot of really interesting technologies and thoughts on how Intel can use some of their expertise to help long-term care. So Eric.
Great to be here. Personally, I'm trying to figure out how do we revolutionize healthcare, and particularly long-term care for every senior citizen on the planet. So this is work actually that we have been doing for about 11 years at Intel. I started the first field work. I'm a social scientist at Intel. We first started studying people with Alzheimer's almost 11 years ago. Built our very first prototype system after that study. It was basically a home sensor network that tried to help seniors continue to be able to do activities of daily living, like making tea or getting dressed by themselves, and the system would try to intervene and help them while they were trying to do that activity of daily living. And 5 years ago, we formed a business to go start working on these exact things.
Cool. So Eric's got some gadgets here. We're going to take a look and see what we can show us. So,
sounds good.
Do you want to start with the reader here?
Sure. This is the Intel Reader. It's a product that we launched about a year ago. There are millions of people worldwide who are either blind, low vision, or dyslexic, and they have trouble reading a text world, right? I mean, we've got everything from your prescription bottle with the curved label on it, to a cereal box, to a novel. What happens? How do you sort of read that? So we built this as a handheld device. It's got a camera. You would hold it up above a piece of paper. If I had a book here, it takes a snapshot of it and basically reads the text back to you. When we use this for like teenagers in school who are dyslexic, they basically are way behind in class because they can't read, but they can use the reader, capture their whole textbook, play it back to them 5 to 10 times the speed that you and I can even hear, and suddenly they're ahead in class instead of behind. Or a senior with macular degeneration, is just struggling to sort of live their daily life. It's a textual world that we live in, and sometimes you need to read your medication bottle, and you just aim and point, and it reads it back to you, and suddenly you can sort of navigate the world. So that's what the Intel Reader's up for.
How long has that been in the market?
Almost a year, and it's think of it really as kind of a consumer electronic device to sort of suck up text and read it back to you into the world.
Do health insurance plans help cover some of the costs from it?
It's not really a medical device per se. I mean, I think over time you might actually start to see that it's an assistive technology, and like most of those assistive technologies, in some states you can get waivers and grants and that kind of thing, and other times it's sort of direct to consumer purchase. I mean, today, to do this with older technology, it was often $10,000-$15,000. This is a $1,500 device, so still more expensive than we want it to be. But if we could figure out how to reach the millions of people who are blind and low vision and dyslexic, that price would come down even lower.
Great. What else have you got for us?
So this is the Intel Health Guide. My social science team at Intel was actually studying people with chronic conditions. If you look in the U.S., we spend about $2.6 trillion a year on healthcare. 75% of that is chronic conditions. The vast majority of that ought to be dealt with from home, not in the hospital. So this is a device that's designed particularly for seniors or comorbid patients with multiple diseases who don't necessarily have a PC in our system. Basically, you can do a number of things. You could, if I was at home, it would have a reminder for me, and it would start a help session that would ask me a series of questions about how are you feeling today. And it's branching logic in the system. If I say I'm sort of doing worse, then it's going to ask me a series of questions. If I say the same as yesterday, then it's going to say what's going on with you, and it's going to do branching logic and ask you different questions based on what's going on. It's also going to ask me as part of my care plan to take vital signs. So I won't do it now, but I can hook up a wired or a wireless blood pressure cuff. Hopefully those will be continua compliant, the standards organization that we've been driving. And then this whole system will sort of update with new patient education materials that get sent down the wire based on my particular care plan and my particular needs.
I think a lot of our readers might be curious about if you're considering other platforms. I mean, I know you've probably thought about putting this on as a software on an iPad. Or is that something you're considering?
Over time, I mean, technically the software today will run on other platforms. You would not get through FDA approval as a Class 2 device on those. I mean, this is the guts of a PC, right?
Yes.
In some future, if you can guarantee that no PC is going to crash, I mean, I'm going to be video conferencing with a nurse or a doctor on this, right?
Exactly. Okay.
The last thing in the world I want is a virus update or my grandson coming in and putting a new game on the system that means it no longer works. So today, to guarantee the quality of service and the ease of use, it's a standalone device. But certainly in the future, you're going to want this working elegantly with your cell phone, your PC, your iPad, and all of those kinds of things. But we've got some real ease of use problems and some regulatory challenges to get to that vision over the horizon.
Cool. All right, you want to show us maybe one more thing?
Sure. Actually, let's talk a little bit about. This is not an MRI. This is actually what we call an HAI, a human activity image. This is actually data of about 30 days of a home sensor network that we've got in about 300 elderly households. This is research right now. This is not yet a product, but you'll see these kinds of things in the future. Simple sensors in the home, actually looking at things like movement patterns, how quickly do you walk down the hallway, measuring what's called postural sway. As you stand, each one of us has a normal amount of postural sway, heel to toe.
Yeah.
If that starts to change and our system picks up that, there's a good sign that you're becoming at risk for a fall.
Okay.
And then these spiral plots over time, you can start to compare and sort of say, okay, wow, I'm getting, each one of these dots may show that I'm getting up more often at night, and that's what the sensors are showing. Makes you aware as a patient, hey, something's fundamentally changing in my behavior that I may not even be aware of yet, but it's easy for the system to pick it up. And then over time, look for those correlations. Can we actually see the emergence of things like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or the risk for a fall by comparing these data types over a large period of time? These are simple sensors in the home. We're going to have them on our bodies, we're going to be wearing them on our cell phones, and they're going to be embedded in the environment.
So right now, is this activity data monitored by humans, or is it an algorithmic interpretation to help kind of set off triggers?
Yeah, some of both. I mean, no one's actually ever captured this kind of human activity in the real home of seniors before. So we don't actually know what data really counts and what doesn't. So that's part of the research here, is to figure out, when is a sensor network firing telling you something that's medically meaningful and when is it not? Ultimately, you'll get a dashboard that just sort of says red, yellow, green. Call these patients. Something's out of whack here. They're at risk for a fall. Today, so it's going to be a mix of human intervention and eventually operators going forward.
I think I remember last year you talked about maybe the data that might be able to come from a phone call of an elderly person.
Yep.
Where you kind of sense if they're delaying when they answer to kind of maybe get a proxy for cognitive decline. Is that what's still going on? Is there anything else kind of like that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, actually, even if you look here, it's not just like in the homes that we're outfitting, there's a series of sensors and software that we're putting in there. There's a whole set of things that are trying to look at motion and different kinds of motion. There's a whole set of things that are trying to look at what we call social health. So like the phone example you just gave us is like, are my patterns of the usage of a phone changing over a period of time? Are my patterns of interaction with the number of people that come to visit me changing over a period of time? Even in this case, sort of gameplay, and if you think about it, how often you play a game and whether you're losing at it more often than you used to, that could ultimately become kind of a cognitive test and a sensor in and of itself. So all of these are data streams that we've been doing research on and experimenting with, and we don't know, until we actually do it, which ones are going to be medically meaningful and kind of magical, and which ones, didn't amount to much. But we continue all those threads of research to try to figure that out.
And so just to clarify, is the ultimate goal of all this technology to enable elderly people to stay in their homes longer?
Yeah, I mean, if you look today, like in the United States, like 1 in 7 seniors actually go to an institution today, but the other 6 out of those 7 need some amount of care and services in their home. Today, they just often don't even get it at all. What we want to be able to do is to do virtual assisted living, virtual independent living, keep you in your own home where you're happier, it's cheaper, greater quality of life for a longer period of time, and hopefully you'll never go into the institution. Or if you do, let's wait until you're 100 and come out when you're 80.
Great. Well, thank you for your commendable work and best of luck.
Great. Thanks to see you. Good to see you.